Episode 106 coming in live April Fool's Day, wrapping up Q1 2025, flying into World Liberation Day tomorrow. I don't know what to make of it. A lot of sideways activity in the market, ups and downs. There's a lot of tariff news. Our boy Michael Saylor is still buying Bitcoin. It's a weird time, but it is definitely the time to buy, no doubt in my mind. Whatever the news coming tomorrow, what's your hot take? What's new as we enter Q2?
Yeah, so Q2, I mean, first of all, it feels like there's a consolidation starting to happen. Perhaps maybe that's too strong of a word, but when you think of these guys shoring up some of their major investments, you just said Michael Saylor, he just adds more and more regardless of the price. Tether just bought one of my favorite numbers, but 8,888 Bitcoin in Q1. Everyone's announcing their Q1 purchases and holdings. That's a lot of money for a stable coin, a lot of Bitcoin for a stable coin. All the Trump family has announced that they're mining Bitcoin.
Yeah, this one really caught my attention.
For me, it just shows that there's like, okay, Q1 was about maybe, overextending, pushing risk, pushing envelopes, generally speaking, from all markets from the government to crypto markets to AI. And now Q2 is, okay, now that we've pushed and pushed and pushed, how do we shore up and protect investments?
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ankarina Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
We talk about building the moat. We use that analogy. So you got to build the moat, but then you got to, shore it up, fill up with water, and keep the guys out. And how do you do that? Well, regulation and/or war chest building. Feels like that's that Q2 message to me.
War chest building for sure. Yeah, the one about Trump's family diving into their own Bitcoin mining. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know, folks, that, not only did they launch meme tokens, Trump tokens, Ivanka tokens, they are now getting into the actual Bitcoin mining game. My take is he's had enough high quality meetings with Mr. Orange himself, Michael Saylor, that he's now swallowed the pill. And Trump himself is like, I got to get in on this action. These guys are over here making money, literally mining Bitcoin. And now he's like, we got to get into it. World Liberty Financial, the other meme token coming out of the Trump organization, famously buying up all of those other tokens, the Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche. Can't remember. There's one other one that got put in there. Cardano.
Tron.
Yeah.
Cardano.
There's a few ADA, but if they're buying up that basket of goods, and we've talked about this on the show, the regulation has shifted. You can now get an ETF, an electronic traded fund for our listeners, approved for these crypto projects. The SEC is writing out approvals. They're flying out of the SEC doors. You can go get your crypto project approved. That is sort of what feels like the stamp of approval. And if World Liberty Financial is doing it, it's a tokenized project. They're out there buying this basket of meme coins, and then Trump launches his own Bitcoin mining operation. That's my take on World Liberation Day. He's now pumping all this FUD into the market about tariffs and reciprocal tariffs and who's going to pay what and how much are we going to owe and how much are they going to owe us. And it feels like tomorrow is going to be this relief maybe in the market. This fear maybe goes away. I don't know. It's a tough one. Or is it this decoupling that I've been talking about where the traditional markets, the 401ks, the traditional retirement accounts, the S&P 500, the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ listed companies, maybe those equities, those securities take a hit. While the crypto markets, he's signaling, do maybe not do as I say, but watch what I do. I don't know.
Well, there's the administration too. It's what was also really interesting is that like every single administration that in my lifetime has been involved in something that you would consider to be crooked, wrong, a little devious, right? And it varies. There's varying levels of it. But going even back, there are long traditions of presidents' families and their cabinets and everyone else becoming enriched or benefiting from the fact that the like-minded people are in power. And like you said, there was when all the who's of the Valley were at CES in January, and then they left CES and they went to the state capital and were at the Rotunda. And then they left the Rotunda and went to Davos. And they're kind of making their tour around the world, the tour that is defining the future of the global economy. We talked about it on the show, I think you're dead on. There is this separation happening. We're seeing it, the traditional markets from these new digital crypto AI powered markets. And the administration is ensuring that it will enrich itself on all sides of this new economy, and levying tariffs and not really being specific as to what that means. Like, it provides that same exact strategy that we saw even going back to the previous administration with Biden. You put a ton on the table. You get people on their heels with the information because they cannot believe what's coming. 25% tariffs on this, 20% tariffs on this. And you start itemizing it. And it starts washing over you. And you start thinking, I got to rush out and buy a Ford today because tomorrow is going to be Liberation Day and I'm going to have to pay triple the tax and all this stuff. And the fear and the uncertainty and the doubt, the FUD is rampant. When the day actually comes, who knows what level it actually is at? And does that create the trampoline effect for the non-traditional markets? Like you said, remember, this administration didn't make their money running around Wall Street. This administration made their money in real estate, in tax loopholes associated with real estate. And now, apparently, with all the loopholes associated with crypto, because you remove all the regulation, you can do whatever you want.
It's digital gold rush. It is digital real estate. I mean, we go back to the original metaverse and the whole definition around that. One other thing, just to tie it back, and actually 2 points. I saw this headline. I didn't send this one to you, but U.S. lawmaker, this is Senator Tommy Tuberville, will reintroduce. He will introduce the Financial Freedom Act, or he introduced it in 2022 and 2023. Both times the legislation failed to get out of committee. He is going to reintroduce this bill, which is designed to reintroduce crypto retirement, allowing traditional Ks to actually buy into crypto. Again, this blurring, these ETFs, the grayscale. We went through the original Bitcoin ETFs. There was the 6 or the 8 or the 9, and Kathy Ark was all the way at the end of that list, but they got approved. Then the Ethereum ones got approved. Then now the Solana ones are getting approved. Now you can buy a basket of ETFs. And now Tommy Tuberville is introducing legislation that's going to allow 401ks to buy not just the ETF, because now you can clearly do that, but direct access to these crypto markets. They are poised to win on all sides. I like that. I like that's where you're going. One other one, just to pull a thread on for a second.
Yeah.
I saw this strange headline today. It was just talking specifically about these reciprocal tariffs and, the way Trump is positioning it of like, okay, yeah, if they charge us 29%, we'll charge them 29%. If it's 15% for coal, we'll give them 15%. If it's 33% for wood, and what the headline was is that there would be 15 million different tariffs to keep track of. And that was sort of the negative headline. This was in the mainstream news. This was like Bloomberg lunch television. I see this headline. It was like, it would be 15 million tariffs to keep track of. And I was like, that's easy when you have blockchain and AI.
But
that's what they're going to do.
But that's exactly my point, which is people talk about the word tariff like it's a single word with a capital T. And it's just this one thing that gets introduced. 15 million flavors of that ice cream.
Yes.
And it sounds like, when you talk about it, it sounds like we're playing some global version of Settlers of Catan. I'm going to give you 2 ore for 1 wheat and 1 electric car. And as you start to think about those tariffs and the reciprocal tariffs, it creates the perfect storm of uncertainty and confusion. It obfuscates the narrative. Imagine talking about and thinking about these tariffs for, I don't know, the next 3 years and 9 months. And let's just continue that conversation as our top line leading story while we enrich ourselves and all of our friends on every side of the crypto and AI marketplace. This is what's happening. This is a Chinese spy balloon equivalent story of who is spying on us, and don't we need to care? And because of it, we're going to enforce all these new regulations. This is saying, I'm putting out 15 million Chinese spy balloons. And now you're going to have to actually figure out which ones are tracking the weather and which ones are spying on you. It's going to require so many resources to parse. And we joke, hey, all you need is AI to like go through and parse it. But we know that there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to create a whole bunch of paperwork and a whole bunch of energy just to keep this narrative going. The administration who's strong on tariffs. And that's what we want you to know, because don't look below while we're producing meme coins, while we're mining Bitcoin, and while we're removing regulation for everything else. Like physical goods, high regulation. Digital goods, zero regulation. Somewhere in the middle, are we going to kind of be on two sides of an economy where one's tanking and one's growing? It feels like that. Like, hey, in real estate, in business, you have a whole bunch of companies or a whole bunch of properties that are successful, right? You have a couple that aren't. You need to take losses. So now I'm wondering, hey, if at the expense of the actual global economy of fiat cash and money, are we going to take losses there so we can enrich ourselves in the digital metaverse economy? Because maybe it doesn't matter if you control both sides. It's going to matter to us, the retail investors.
When I start thinking about that ledger, that maximum ledger that you're describing, it's sort of at the macro level, then I start to think about two things. One, Elon Musk sort of subsuming his own company with XAI into X, and there's a paper value of exchange. There's a loss and there's a win, but it's all on paper. But the big number that they throw out is this $33 billion stock deal.
That's the one I was going to go to.
Movement on either side. And then the other one that we've been covering for almost 2 years now, which is crazy to start to think about, Sam Altman getting another round of funding, it looks like, and another net new valuation. I don't actually know where the number was, but he took another pile of money.
40 billion more dollars.
Is it real money? And is it the other side of this equation? You know what I'm saying? Like those real dollars now going into these digital dollars. And sorry to keep going on it, but the link you sent me about the California introduces this Bitcoin rights in amended digital assets bill seems really relevant if we're tokenizing the real thing. And then we can trade the paper value on the digital tokenized version of it. Then maybe we need to change the rules of what the definitions of these digital tokens are so that it's one-to-one with the real world. Perhaps.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, so this kind of chicanery, I think, has been going on for decades. And this goes back to the original stock market deals and the original internet deals. So I was a part of, a global publishing internet company, a couple of them, ZDNet, CNET Networks, etc. Bread and butter, you sell ads, digital ads on web pages. But hey, interestingly enough, maybe you can't sell every impression because there are just so many hundreds of millions of web page views that you can't monetize all of them. So what do you have? You have what's called barter. Barter would be like trading value for internal products. So if you have a portfolio of companies like Mr. Musk, then you could say, well, I'm going to give promotional opportunity, let's just say, for Tesla on this thing I have called XAI. And in so doing, on paper, I am transferring value from one to the other, right? I am gifting, donating, selling $20 million worth of ad rotation revenue that is unsold because that's the fair market value to myself. And this is how many tech companies back at the turn of the century inflated their balance sheets, because it was this unclear value attribution. That's really what kind of started with the whole gap analytics, where you started to have this like almost a rolling look at analytics over time of your financial data over time.
General accounting principles.
General accounting principles, which accounts for the fact it kind of prevents people from doing a lot of those tricky things where at the very last day of the quarter, somehow you shore up a deficit because you just sold yourself from one portfolio company to another, a barter deal on the advertising. So this to me sounds exactly like that, just in this new era, this nouveau way, right? I have a company that I've already taken a beating in the press on purchasing for way too much money because I tweeted about how I would buy Twitter for all these billions. What was the total sale price for Twitter?
I don't remember.
I really tens of billions. It's somewhere in the 30 to 40 range, right? Everyone laughed and laughed. What an idiot paid $44 billion for something that was only worth half of that because of this, that, and the other thing, right? Well, now that same individual is taking the thing that was purchased for this exorbitant fee, but then acquiring it for less than that fee. Let's take a loss, right? Let's write that down. But there was no physical or digital money transferred because in this case, it was just a stock deal, which is the ultimate fishy business because there is literally no ledger. There's not even a paper trail because the two sides that are doing the deal are controlled by the same individual. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, that's a perfect way. Close the quarter, shore up the loss that everyone mocked you for, write off 14, 15 billion for that loss to offset your tax exposure. And then, but to not let him get away with a perfect crime, Sam Altman, his former jilted business partner from OpenAI, just says like casually, a $33 billion stock deal. That sounds cute. I just raised $40 billion cash and we're going to keep rolling just to snuff out any excitement you might have outside. But this to me, from my experience, classic. It's literally laundering gains and losses without having to tell anyone anything.
And let's just say that the U.S. federal government needs an AI tool to manage 15 million on-chain tariffs. I guess it's probably going to be running through XAI. That's my guess. You wouldn't want to expose that to your buddy Sam Altman over here and his deal with Microsoft and their government contract. No. We can't have that kind of visibility. Our AI must be controlled from within the inner circle. I mean, now we're getting to the layers of what you're seeing, the headlines, the big $1 billion, the acquisitions, the FUD in the markets, the tariffs. And when you pull it all the way back and you look under all that noise, you start to see whatever gets announced tomorrow, the fix is already in, that the folks who are driving this narrative are poised to win on all sides of it. I love that take. I don't even know where else to go with this other than tomorrow's going to be fun to watch. Tomorrow
notwithstanding, we know it's going to be crazy. We know it's going to be unexpected, right? We've learned, and it's a cliche term, but to expect the unexpected and to just assume that even the most surreal is going to be real. Like to use your words from many, many shows back, if we don't know what is going to happen, the answer is the most entertaining outcome is going to happen. So sit back, get the popcorn and get ready because tomorrow will be very entertaining. But that's one thing. The second thing though is getting back to something that we, for more than a year, have been trying to articulate and wrestle with, this notion that the mainstream has an idea of what AI is because of the way it's promoted to the mainstream, right? There was a wave where AI is going to allow students to cheat. That's the narrative. Yeah. Then there's a wave of AI is going to replace jobs in these particular sectors. Then there is an AI is going to, be managing portfolios for after hours trading in a new way. There's these certain narratives that get pushed forward as to what AI actually is. But one of the things that we know and our listeners know is that there are a plurality of AIs and they are controlled by very specific people. There's many American AIs. ChatGPT, very famous. Musk, original investor. Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, ironically finds himself like in the military arm of AI in a weird way, aligning with Google, constantly talking about effective altruism, constantly talking about nukes and control and stuff, and like somehow got themselves in that narrative. We know Musk is Mr. Doge and Mr. Efficiency. So if you don't think XAI is going to manage 15 million tariffs, you're crazy because there needs to be someone to do it. Well, what's that called? Grok. I'm just waiting for the GROK acronym. It's going to come just like Doge. It'll be some dumb acronym. And then you have China developing AI. You have Russia developing AI. You have England. You have all these different territories that are creating it. Do you think in any scenario, any of those AI are going to have anything to do with our American business, government, economy? Of course not. So we're talking like there's a short list of possible parties to play, and they're all slotting into their different roles the same way they slotted into their different chairs at the rotunda for the inauguration. Because it's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. But really, when we say, when you're being anointed by the government, it's more like your AI is going to serve this purpose for us. And they need to have all the AIs create their own agent path. We can't have them all doing everything. That's why I feel like this new Grok story, this one is going to squarely puts Musk into a position to really leverage, AI alongside these Doge humans that are coming in and supposedly, nipping and tucking the government, overspending.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That the folks at the top, with the help of Elon, with the help of Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, these guys have been sort of dividing up the pie, dividing up the work to be done, and how many agents and how many sets of agents and who are going to be, the owners of those agents. It also just made me think of something a little bit off, but when you were talking about sort of the funny math in how businesses can write off losses or stock deals and how value gets created on paper effectively. There's something really interesting there about AI agents and users. I saw something about, I forget what the brand was, but do they have a fake influencer problem, right? Like now all of a sudden, if you have fake users, let's say there's just, you launch a traditional SaaS platform and then you go deploy a million agents to go create accounts. The AI can go log in and has an email address, and now you can have daily active users, and you can have views. Going back to your ad example, right? This was the problem with those programmatic ads, is that you couldn't tell the difference between a bot. Ooh, now what is AI? Is it a bot? Is it an agent? Is it a user? Who is it?
I think AI, like you're saying, if it is an agent, it sort of supersedes these bots, because that is a sort of an existential question of brands and of influence. Because traditionally in Web 1 and Web 2, Web 1 was, there's a click farm. We hired something called a click farm. What does that do in Web 1 days? It could be humans. It could be scripts, like programmatic scripts that are using a mouse cursor, a little arrow pointer, and clicking on web pages to boost the number of impressions to effectively increase your ad inventory, right? That was bots clicking for you, click farming. Web 2 comes along and says, we have this social media, explosion, the proliferation of accounts and followers. And gosh, I have 500,000 followers. Well, how many of those accounts are real, or are they bots? That was the term. Bot was like the NPC from a role-playing game, right? It's that thing that's just an algorithm that runs, not very smart, but it's doing enough to give you a follower. Well, now we're in this Web3 world where the influencer themselves, or itself, theyself, is creating content because the AI can, and now there are AI agents who are beholden to that operator. The operator is creating the content. The agents are creating the engagement. And the question is, at the behest of whom? Is it for the brand? Is it against the brand? How do you disintermediate the brand from its actual influencers versus its AI generated agent influencers? It might actually become the next frontier in this gold rush. It's not selling shovels. It's actually creating holes because you have enough of these agents digging for you with their hands.
Ooh, not the picks and shovels, but the hole, the actual solution to the
hands,
problem.
Just the hole, dig a hole.
I need to think this through, but I mean, it is going to be a new paradigm. We've talked a little bit about this, that there's going to be this need, this consumer need, and that consumer could be a human or an artificial intelligent bot, an agent, that's going to need to know what percentage of the content it is consuming was created by a human or an agent. I need to think through, because like influence, all of a sudden, if you have 100,000 Twitter followers, well, it could be a flex to say, of my 100,000 Twitter followers, 90,000 of them are Grok agents who are taking my content and syndicating it out to their users, because now the agents have users, the layers here, the meta layers that you have to go to keep track of ultimately who owns the agent, who owns this thing that is taking an action. And that does lead you back to effective altruism. It can lead you back to a whole bunch of different ways. But at the end of the day, being able to track back these agents back to their owners, to be able to fully understand what their goal is, what the objective is, and what the financial relationship to that goal and objective is. And that's going to be on chain.
And okay, let me add another layer to this, because this is an article that hit that I think I forwarded to you, but it's this notion that, we always think of these marketplaces, whether it's an exchange, whether for a stock exchange, whether it's for digital asset exchange, that it's a global offering. We talk about, the meme coins that come, the Pepes and the Trump coins. It's a global casino. People talk about, right? Anywhere in the world at any time of the day, someone can put in a quarter, pull the handle and say, I want to buy one of these things. It's a global exchange, global economy. But now, in this interesting twist, which is, for lack of a better term, let's call it like geofencing the activity of companies, of AI, of agents. So this one, it hit the transom for me, which is, we know one of the lead figures in this race for the ETFs, for the Bitcoin ETF, for the spot Ethereum ETF, was a company called BlackRock. BlackRock is I think has the largest amount of money under management in the world, trillions of dollars. Largest. They're the guys, right? They're the ones that unjam the log jam of all of these ETF applications. They've been sitting in there for 10 years waiting to get approved, stymied by the SEC. BlackRock shows up, tons of money, alignment with incoming administration. We get it done. So now the next step is to say, well, it's fine if you have these derivatives for a basket of stocks. It's fine if you have a derivative for a basket of digital assets. But what if we make a derivative for the activity of all of those stocks and all those digital assets in one of the 50 states? So BlackRock is planning and pushing a Texas ETF. So it's an electronic traded fund of all of the activity that's in the basket called Texas. Okay. Now you think about that for a second, because it goes it's 100% contradictory to the ethos of all of these things we've seen up until now, which is that, well, this is borderless. This is about freedom of transaction of value. And now it's okay. Well, if Elon has SpaceX headquartered in Texas, if BlackRock has a major headquarters in Texas, pick the next one, if Smucker's Jam adds a headquarters in Texas, and if the 4 hottest new meme coin companies, if Bored Apes decides we're going to put a headquarters in Texas, well, then all of a sudden, because of your zip code, you're now allowed to be added to this derivative basket of value. It's both terrestrial and digital, but only because there's someone filing taxes in the great state of Texas.
Ownership
Explain
matters.
To me this one. Ownership
matters. And if you have to know where or who owns it, you're going to want to be able to geolocate the owner, the digital land, the land baron, you go all the way back, and the digital real estate. And you need to know where this person is and where the value is being created. Even this conversation around narratives, it does feel very isolationist, right? It is very America centric. It is make America great again. All of that of confined within the boundaries. We know which of these crypto projects are American made. We know which ones are commodities that are global stores of reserve as well. But that's very interesting that ETF around Texas, just as Texas is trying to set up the Texas Stock Exchange, which we've covered a little bit here. I think keep your eye on those two things. If all of a sudden there's an ETF that can get traded on through BlackRock in your retirement, and then there's a net new stock exchange that can trade crypto that's in Texas, all of a sudden that value creation happening in a specific geofence, I can now trade it. I can now trade the future value of said asset on the public stock exchange through the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, this is really wild to get to, from FUD in the markets to tomorrow, World Liberation Day. Here we are on April 1st, and this stuff is no joke. This is what's happening. And I said it last episode, it's like everything is financial advice now. And I think there's a lot of research that listeners can do based on what we just talked through. But at the end of the day, this intersection of what's happening in mainstream markets with crypto and blockchain technologies, what it means for artificial intelligence, whether that's OpenAI or Elon Musk's Grok XAI, and what that means for the future of money, being able to run millions and millions and billions of microtransactions at speed on the blockchain. 15 million tariffs is going to look like a drop in the bucket. It is a drop in the bucket. I want to hear maybe your hot take, final thoughts as we head into Q.
Well, all I could say to you, Michael, is that there's digital gold in them hills. And as long as the barbed wire fence is up, you can't be using your DEX unless you're standing on my side of the wire. I think we're gonna see the most surreal, like you say, there's a gold rush. The gold rush is now about staking claims. Remember, the original gold rush in California came down to who has the claim to go start digging in this particular part of the great earth. And right now in Texas, it definitely feels like a return to saying, hey, if you see a fence up, well, that's not your property. But you can go into town to the newly developed Texas Stock Exchange, and you too can invest in a piece of this territory that will one day be used to mine all this digital gold. Talk about returning to the basics. I find that it's fascinating, and it's totally paradoxical that in order to succeed in this new digital world, you actually have to have absolute control over the physical world. Maybe those two things will never, ever be untethered from each other.
Man, Tommy Tuberville digging for digital gold in Texas. We'll leave it there. We'll do it again next week.
Talk to you next week, man.
Good talking with you.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time for more news and all things crypto and Web3.